about characterisation. So to start off with, please have a look at these two characters. On the left we have Professor Quirrell, on the right we have Professor Snape. I'd like you to pause the video in a moment and to write a list of 5 adjectives that you would use to describe each character. So to start you off, I've given you timid for Quirrell and severe for Snape. So please pause the video and do that now. Welcome back. So hopefully you'll have used adjectives like nervous or anxious or timid for Quirrell, based on his body language and his mannerisms, whereas you might have used words like stern or threatening for Snape due to his glare and his crossed arms. What is characterisation and why is it important? Characterisation just refers to the way that an author presents and develops their characters. This can be done directly, so by the author directly telling us something about the character, or indirectly and subtly when the author shows us what the character is like through their speech, tone of voice, expression or body language, rather than telling us directly. This is important because it helps to create complex and believable characters. So I would think of indirect characterisation as just clues from the author that reveal what kind of person the character is. On the screen in a moment, I'm about to break down different ways to indirectly characterise. But rather than me reading it aloud, I'd like you to pause each slide and to summarise information to bullet points. So 1, we have speech and dialogue. 2, mannerisms and body language. 3 is word choice. And 4 is thoughts and feelings. As an example, I'd like us to have a look at how Professor Quirrell is first characterised at the start. So I've highlighted key words and phrases in gold, and I think these are all of the most important clues that reveal what type of person he is. So for example, he's pale and young, he's nervous, he's twitching and he stammered, and he looks terrified. What I'd like to do is, using this extract, so you might need to pause this to collect your quotes, I'd like you to write a table in your books and list 4 of Quirrell's characteristics alongside 4 pieces of evidence that prove each point. So for example, your first point might be nervous, and a quote to prove that might be that he stammers. So please pause the video now and we'll discuss some of my ideas in a bit more detail. So 1, he's introduced as sickly, weak and inexperienced, all of which presents him as quite vulnerable. And I think this is supported by the quote, pale young man, as pale has connotations of sickness, weakness or fear. 2, his voice, he's really nervous, which is revealed by his stammer. 3, he is presented as a victim. 4, he fidgets and his body language is quite uncomfortable. So look at the verbs like twitching and trembling. On the other hand, Snape is characterised very differently. For example, he speaks softly and in a whisper, and his eyes are compared to dark tunnels and his lips curled into a sneer. Same as last time, please pause this screen and complete the table listing 4 of Snape's characteristics alongside 4 pieces of evidence for each point. Okay, so you might have said something a bit like this. He's cruel and mocking, he is intimidating and the students are afraid of him, he's really cold and unfriendly, and he's condescending. By condescending, I just mean he talks down to people. So in a moment, I'm going to ask you to have a go at doing a piece of descriptive writing. But before I ask you to do that, I would like you to answer these questions about your best friend. So 1, what does my character look like, or what does my best friend look like? 2, how do they interact with other people? 3, which adjectives will I use to sum them up? And 4, what does my character or best friend think or say? Okay, so pause this please and answer these questions. Okay, welcome back again. So your task is on the screen. I'd like you to write a piece of descriptive writing about your best friend. And remember to focus on revealing information through their speech, voice, expressions and mannerisms. You should aim to write at least 2 paragraphs. If you are struggling, please use information on the screen to help you. In the left column, I provided you with a line-by-line breakdown to help you structure your first paragraph. So in your first line, alliteration. Your second line, please include a metaphor. Your third line, a rhetorical question. Your fourth line, embedded ellipses. Your fifth line, a triple. Your sixth line, a simple sentence. Your seventh line, personification. Your eighth line, simile. And your stretch and extend challenge, can you include a semantic field? If you're struggling with any of the subject terminology that I've just used, then on the right-hand column, we have all of the vocabulary and definitions for each term. In the middle, you might have noticed there's an example, and that follows the structure in the other column. So for example, in the first line, elfin eyes is highlighted in green because that is an example of alliteration. So rather than me reading this out, I'm going to allow you some time to pause this and read through it. I would like you to follow this structure and to have a go at writing a paragraph in which you characterise your best friend. And remember, you should be focusing on showing us what your friend is like rather than telling us what your friend is like.